And again, I just got the title and the author's name off of the page 15 workbook. All right. So you guys are going to talk me through this and tell me what to write down. So the title is The Pilgrim. So what do you predict the poem might be about? Yes, ma'am.
Like the pilgrims are like whenever they came originally in the world.
Okay. So the Pilgrims as in some of the original colonists. Any other ideas about what the Pilgrim could be about? Have you ever heard of people who take pilgrimages? And what it is they're usually taking a pilgrimage to? Have you ever heard about people taking religious pilgrimages, like going to Jerusalem if they're Christian or Jewish, or going to Mecca if they are Muslim? Have you ever heard of that before? Maybe it could be about that, taking a religious pilgrimage. I'm probably going to misspell something. I'm writing in pen. But again, just looking at the title first, at least get your brain thinking about, okay, what could the poem be about? And then our next step is going to be to paraphrase. So we actually have to read the poem next. And you might have to use the back of your paper for the paraphrase too, depending on how big you write. Okay, so the Pilgrim. Below me half a world I see outspread, above blue heaven, around peaks of snow, and yet the happy pulse of life is slow. I dream of distant places, pleasures dead. The woods of Lithuania I would tread, where happy-throated birds sing songs I know. Above the trembling marshland I would go, where chill-winged curlews dip and call o'erhead. So it has a little note at the bottom that the curlews are a type of bird. The sandpipers, you know, the ones at the beach that they have the thin legs, yeah, and they're running around, and they like to dig up the little shells. We call them butterfly shells. The really small, no, super small. No, not a stork. I'm talking about the shells. They're not called, well, I mean, it's a type of mussel, but they're the little really small ones that'll burrow down in the sand.
Oh,
Yeah.
What are they?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I thought they were all-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called.
Really? Even when they're that little?
Yeah.
But we call them butterfly shells because when the shells open up, they look like butterfly wings.
I've always known when people would-
I'll have to look that up. Okay. We're getting off track in our recording here. Okay. So below me half a world I see outspread. Talks about the blue heaven, the peaks of snow. You have this line in the middle. I dream of distant places, pleasures dead. Is the speaker still in this place with the blue heaven, the peaks of snow? based on the
Yes.
line 4, I dream.
He's thinking about it, they're dreaming about it.
Oh.
Yeah, thinking about it. They're not there anymore. And then it goes back to the woods of Lithuania I would tread, where happy-throated songbirds sing songs I know. So what is the main idea of this first stanza?
Someone dreaming about like somewhere else than where they actually are.
Okay, and where is the somewhere else? Because they tell you specifically in line 5,
The word that was,
Lithuania. Oops. He or she remembers. So for the second stanza, I'm going to have to move to the back. The speaker has moved from Lithuania and is describing what he or she remembers. They are happy memories. And then stanza 2. A tragic, lonely terror grips my heart, a longing for some peaceful, gentle place, and memories of youthful love I trace. Unto my childhood home I long to start, and yet if all the leaves my name could cry, she would not pause nor heed as she passed by. So these lines up here have happy memories. What happens in the second stanza?
sad.
Yes, there's a lot of sadness, loneliness, because they're not there in Lithuania anymore. And when we get to the connotation, we're going to talk about these last 2 lines, this personification here. But here, what is the speaker longing for?
Their childhood.
Yep.
home.
Yep. So I'm going to have to go to the back. I write a little bigger. So stanza 2. Okay, the speaker longs for his or her childhood home, and the speaker feels lonely. Brady, are you good? Okay. All right. So then we look at connotation. And we're really going to focus on figurative language. Now, this particular poem has a lot of imagery. So we're going to find 2 examples of imagery. And then you have the personification at the end. So let's look at the first stanza. Give me one example of imagery that you see. Yes, ma'am.
Above blue heaven, around peaks of snow.
Okay, so we're going to go for line 2. Remember to put the quotation marks around the line because we're copying it directly from the poem. A lot of people are going to the mountains here this time of year. That line kind of reminds me of the mountains a little bit, even though it's not snowing here quite yet. And what's a second example of imagery from that first stanza? Caitlin, I'm going to give somebody else an opportunity. Troy? Okay, so the last line. I'll highlight these so they kind of stand out a little bit. So we have imagery, and we have 2 examples. And then we'll have personification. And where's our personification? Do you remember what personification is?
Yeah.
Oh, anybody? Yes, sir, Troy. Okay, so you give human qualities to things that are not human. So you see that, and I'm just going to write lines 13 and 14 here. And yet, if all the leaves my name could cry, She. Who is she? That's where our personification is. What? Whose name? No. She would not pause. She wouldn't stop. Even if leaves were crying out my name.
Probably like the tree. Yeah, the trees.
Hmm?
Lithuania?
Say it again.
Lithuania?
You got it. Awesome. Lithuania wouldn't stop or heed. It's being personified. That's who the she is. That implies Lithuania is not the speaker's home country anymore. It's just a memory. So for the next section, the attitude, I want you to pull out that tone word list. It's the white one that you have on your desk. And you really see two different tones. You see one for stanza 1, and then you see something different for stanza 2. So just looking at the general headings. Yes, ma'am.
So like, it's kind of has a positive tone.
Okay.
Because it says dreamy and then it says I dream.
Okay, so dreamy. Let's come up with several.
Heaven?
What?
Would that mean heaven?
I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Heaven.
A heaven tone, is that under the positive words?
No.
Okay, but find something that
Happy.
could go with that. Okay, happy. What could go with the heaven idea that you had, Brady?
Hopeful.
Hopeful, like that. Okay, so we have 3. I think that's really good. The point with this is you could write about any one of these 3 tone words and be correct and get full credit. Now in stanza 2, you see a shift immediately in line. A tragic, lonely terror grips my heart. So are we still in the positive range? No, we've shifted to that negative. So under the negative words, what do you see that could fit? Say that one more time. Oh, I mean on the tone word list. We could use lonely terror to support our tone, but we need to figure out some tone words. They're on the yeah. Yeah, find something. No. Yeah. So Troy just asked a really good question. Do you have to actually find the tone word in the stanza? No. So what attitude does the speaker have? Caitlin? What? Bitter. Ooh, I like that one. Because it's stronger than just unhappy. Because the language that we see here, like tragic, terror, grips. Caitlin Kirkley, what were you saying?
Probably like cold.
Cold. And when it's talking about a cold tone, it's not talking about like a temperature cold. It's like somebody's personality's kind of cold. Yes, sir. What? Coarse. And that's with an A. That means harsh. That kind of goes along with the bitter. I like it. So next, did we see a shift yes. And it was at the stanza break. So let's look at the specific diction. Diction's just a fancy word for what? I know this has been 3-4 weeks ago. Do you remember your EOC prep definitions? Diction's a fancy word for words. Words. So in stanza 1, what words, just individual words or 2-word phrases, help support dreamy, happy, and hopeful?
Blue heaven.
Blue heaven, yes. What else? Let's find 2 more that support dreamy, happy, and hopeful. What? Oh, happy throated. I'm sorry. I was looking at another happy phrase. Who sees the other phrase with the word? Yeah, happy pulse. So what about the negative, bitter, cold, coarse? Yes, sir, Troy. Lonely terror. Okay, that's me watching horror movies. This is why I don't do it. Not a good idea. What other negative words or phrases do you see?
Longing for something peaceful.
Yes. Where is that?
Line
Oh. How about one more? Yes, sir, Troy. Yes, that verb cry. So next we go back to the title. So if you had to look at the title now that you've read more about it, you know the speaker is from Lithuania and for whatever reason has had to move away, what would be something more specific now? Yes, ma'am.
Because like pilgrims are like new to like different places, and they probably miss their childhood home because they're new to the place that they're at now.
Okay. And does it necessarily mean the American colonies?
No.
No, it just means they're in a new land, wherever that may be. Maybe something happened in Lithuania politically that the speaker felt like he or she had to leave and didn't really want to, but had to. Maybe they were cast out for religious reasons. We just don't know. There you go. So next, I want you to look at the green arrow. let's figure out, there should be a front and a back. And again, we could have several themes. Say that again?
14. Number 12.
Number 12. Fortune. Well, when I think of fortune, I think of somebody with a lot of power or somebody that's really rich and wealthy, who all of that's taken away. Do we really know
No.
if this speaker has power or was very wealthy? We don't know that. Yes, Troy. Which one? Alienation, creating emotional isolation. And what has created that emotional isolation? Exactly. Okay. So I could see that. Let's see if we can come up with 3 ideas here.
31,
31. Thank you for saying a number. I'm having a hard time hearing this morning. Suffering.
2.
And what about one more? 19. I think so. I think definitely in that second stanza you see this idea of hopelessness. So watch my magic. I'm going to take those 3 ideas and turn them into a theme statement. When a person leaves their homeland, they may experience suffering, which, my P and my I kind of got mixed in together, which leads to alienation and hopelessness. So I used suffering, I used alienation, and hopelessness. I'll get that while you guys are fighting. You see that okay? That's not helpful. Okay, thank you so much. I'll get this filled out and then we'll do you have a scan on the printer to email it to yourself?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right, thank you. About that. So notice I didn't put the poem title, I didn't put the author's name, because theme statements are meant to be generic so that potentially you could apply the same theme to some other work. Does that make sense? You might read a short story that has these same ideas. You might read some nonfiction piece that has a main idea with this. All right. So to review, we started with just looking at the title without having read it, coming up with some ideas, just to get our brains thinking a little bit. Then we paraphrased or put into our own words each stanza. I do not want you to do this line by line. You don't have time for that when we're looking at the EOC. Connotation, we're looking specifically at figurative language. So here we looked at imagery and personification. You could eventually use these lines, hint, hint, on Thursday in your constructed response. So this is like your brainstorming for that already. The attitude, we looked at the speaker's tone, and you came up with several. All of these are correct and could work. One's not more correct than another. And then you chose some language that helps to support those images, or those tones. Then you went back to the title and said, Pilgrims miss their homeland no matter where they are from. And then we looked at the ideas of alienation, suffering, hopelessness, and developed a theme statement. So again, this is to help you as you're looking at specifically poetry.